welcome to another edition of Inside Look. Yes, Inside Look. Normally, when we record Inside Look, it's in front of the green screen. Our news set, which we are on today, we use only for the news, government programs, and state election programs. No, not state election, all election programs. Today, we're talking about a state election, and that is the race for state representative. You will cast ballots on the first Tuesday in November, the same day you cast ballots for U.S. Senate and President of the United States. I held off on recording this episode because there was a state primary and David Cannata was the only candidate on the Republican side, but still wanted to wait until after the primary so people would not get confused. David, first of all, congratulations. You've already won one election.
Yes. Thank you very much, Peter. I appreciate that.
So let's begin and take your time. Don't rush through it because I'm sure other than the people you have met face to face, a lot of people don't know David Cannata Jr. They might know David Cannata Sr., but David Cannata Jr. Where are you from originally? Where were you born?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up right here in North Attleboro. I've been here for pretty much my entire life. I went through Martin School and then through, community school for junior high, and I graduated from North Attleboro High School, and so I've spent just about my entire life here right in North Attleboro. There's been a year or two here or there where I moved away, but I always come back. North Attleboro is my home.
Now, I'm sure there's some older residents who remember when North Attleboro Middle School was built, and they're thinking, okay, if he attended junior high at the community school, how old would he be?
Yeah, so I just turned 40 this year.
Oh man, that's a big one.
Yeah, I went into the high school. Our freshman year was the first year of the new junior high. Okay. So we were able to see how wonderful it was without actually experiencing it for ourselves.
So Martin School,
yep.
Community school as North Attleboro Junior High School,
yep.
Then North Attleboro High School. How about after high school?
After high school, I spent a little bit of time at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute over in New York. I studied some engineering there. I spent a little bit of time at UMass Amherst, and since then I got into my career. I started building, worked with my father quite a bit, and doing a lot of new construction there, some remodeling, and then I got into property management, facilities management for about 7 or 8 years after that. So construction industry was a big part of my career. Since property management, I got into teaching. So I was teaching contractors safety laws. So I went from working in the construction industry, learning just how dangerous it is and how to navigate the dangers of the construction industry, to teaching others how to be safe. OSHA laws, the lead law, which is a really huge thing here in especially New England with all the really old buildings and old homes that we have, how to renovate with the lead there so that you don't get sick yourself as the worker, but it's more focused on not leaving lead behind for the families and the children, and the worst part, bringing it home on yourself and then giving it to your own family. So a big part of that was teaching contractors. I got into, in the teaching aspect, construction supervisors. Having my construction supervisor license for over 20 years now qualified me to be able to teach other construction supervisors the continuing ed that we need to renew our license every couple years. And that gives me sort of a unique perspective on all of the things that we see in the building industry on how contractors need to comply with the new regulations and all sorts of stuff, which is part of some of my platform is that. And having taught it for several years, how to actually build it, gave me a lot of great insight there. So I've been doing that for about the last 6 years. I do a bunch of other stuff as well. Like I'm a life insurance agent. I sell security systems, and in my free time I run my own web development business.
So, you've got your toes in many waters, that's
yes,
for sure.
That's true.
I'm always fascinated how people end up in the career that they did. I always wanted to be an actor. My dad talked me out of that. He goes, how good do you think you'd be at waiting tables? And I went, what? He goes, I've done some research. The majority of actors end up just being professional waiters their entire life. And then cable television came about, and I said, well, that looks like a lot of fun. I think I'd really enjoy that. Now, 40 some odd years later, I'm still doing it. How about you, engineering? At what point in either the junior high or North Attleboro High School did you say, that's what I want to do?
Well, excellent question. It was really a part of me growing up on construction sites with my dad. You know, as soon as I was old enough to swing a hammer, I was on the job, in the houses, maybe not doing a whole lot of productive work, but he taught me, you know, what needed to be done, and I was around and I was learning. And as I got older, you know, my parents, my father had built a bunch in Lindsay Acres and other parts of town, and some apartments. The apartments that he was managing, I'd be, you know, shoveling snow and replacing water heaters and unplugging toilets and, you know, renewing apartments for the new rentals and things like that. So as soon as I was old enough to work, you know, he had me working, and I was learning these things, and it was almost like a natural progression into, you know, when I leave high school, it's, you know, going into the family business, construction and building. And he had sort of planted the seed, you know, civil engineers are in high demand, and you'll learn all kinds of great stuff. And that was what my focus was on when I went out there to do that.
We won't get into specifics about the campaign and if elected, some of the things you believe in, but I have to ask this question while we're on the topic.
Okay.
One of the biggest challenges North Attleboro faces, Attleboro, Mansfield, the entire country, is so-called starter homes. I mean, our first home, and we're still in it, is a cape. We only have one child, so it's the perfect size for us. Developers don't build capes anymore. And let's face it, they own the property, they're building, they want to get the biggest bang for their buck, but I think one of the results of that is homes are just too expensive for a young married couple in their 20s. I mean, what can be done?
Yeah, it is a really big concern, and it's not just here. Massachusetts, one of the more expensive places to live in the country, but throughout the country we're experiencing, you know, housing shortages, and, you know, there's a lot of different reasons for it. But to your question there, why aren't we building smaller homes that might be more affordable? There's, you know, a lot of history into, you know, why did we get away from start building, you know, capes and get bigger into garrisons and all this other stuff, which I won't go into now. But ultimately, it came down to, you know, the labor and the cost to build and the time it took to build. It was an easy transition to go from, you know, a single floor cape or a two-story ranch or something like that, and turn it into a, you know, two-story garrison or something like that, on the same size property with similar construction costs in terms of material and the labor that was available. It allowed for that, and that's why we started to see, you know, a move from capes to, you know, the larger homes, and now it's just that's what gets built these days. It doesn't really help the cost of buildings, especially now, or new homes, and that's one of the big problems that we see is, how does a 23, 24-year-old family just graduated, or a couple just married, graduated college, start their life buying a new home, getting into a new home, and we're not seeing that. It's renting, and the renting turns into sometimes perpetual renting, simply because it's so expensive to get land and build a home. And, you know, a lot of and I don't want to go into all the details now, not being a political thing here, but, you know, a lot of my platform is simply understanding, you know, why is it so expensive for us to build right now, and what are some of the things we can do to reduce those costs that, in my opinion, are, you know, overly burdensome and partly unnecessary.
It is, and we can start to get into the political side of it. It is a free enterprise system, and the market dictates what property will sell for. It went from single-family homes that young people could afford to, okay, condos. So you start with a condo, and then you move into a bigger home. I'm seeing the price of condos, and some of them are almost as expensive as the houses.
Absolutely, and it doesn't come with anything the house comes with.
Yeah.
And I mean, we see that with rental prices too. You know, rent for a 1, 2, or 3 bedroom apartment is what a mortgage would be, what you would expect a mortgage to be.
Not to single out 21 East, but I know a young couple, they're not married yet. They have a 1-bedroom apartment at 21 East, which means they have to move their car every time it's going to rain heavily. But they pay more for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment than we pay for our mortgage, which is almost paid off, the taxes on the mortgage, and the insurance on the mortgage. And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell are they ever going to be able to afford a house? So let's get into your platform. How do we make Massachusetts more affordable for, at 40, you're kind of over that hump right now, but for someone in their 20s, Adam Scanlon's age, for example.
Right. Well, so one of the big things that we see here in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is one of the pioneers, one of the leaders in, energy policy, and we see that here in our new energy code that came out. And it's the 2021 energy code, but it didn't go into effect until 2023, and that's just kind of how it is normally in Massachusetts with the codes and things like that. We're slightly behind. In 2022, it took about a year for the regulators, so not legislators. So legislators crafted a law in 2021, and they basically told regulators, you have a deadline, January 1st, 2023, to come up with the plan, to come up with how can we get here. So the legislators crafted a law that said, here's the goal we would like to meet, fossil fuel reduction, fossil fuel independence by 2050, and all these they created the law, and they said, okay, regulators, you've got a year and a half to figure this out and then put the plan in place. And throughout 2022, we started to see the draft proposal, and then revised, and then we saw the final one where they were asking for comments throughout. But ultimately, this the energy policy that was put in place, it forces builders and new home buyers, and even renovations for existing homes. Now, your home, did you build it when you guys?
No, it was built in 1939, so.
Right. So an older home.
It has the original boiler in it. Used to be a coal boiler, was converted over to oil before we retire, which is in 5 years, 9 months, not that we're counting, but
Right.
I want to replace that. So I was thinking, okay, do we bring gas up? Do we stay with oil? And then someone said, and I don't know if it's true or not, by 2050 in Massachusetts, you're going to have, what do they call those, the things outside with the vents?
So there's heat pumps.
Heat pumps, that's
it. Heat pumps.
So now I don't know what the hell to put in.
Yeah, right. That's part of this law that I'm referring to. It mandated through law that here's the goals we need to meet. And the regulators then came in and crafted the plan on how to get there. And part of that new energy policy is building new homes, all electric. Heat pumps, ERVs, HRVs, systems put in so that there's no gas stoves. It's all electric. Cooking, heating, everything's all electric. And part of that is it forces us to be all electric without forcing us to be all electric. So it's kind of the carrot versus the stick mentality. And the way I like to think is that if we put a carrot out in front of people, people will naturally want to do that. The incentivizing people to do something that we want to have happen. And what has happened instead is what we're seeing is the stick method. The regulations that the home builders have to comply with requires all electric systems, heating, all this stuff. Or if you want to have fossil fuels, the requirements are much stricter. So you have to have more insulation, less air movement, and they're more heavily the rating system. So the HERS rating system, which rates how much the airflow in and out of the home it needs to be much tighter. So they're giving leeway to all electric homes, and they're giving more restrictions for fossil fuel homes. So they're making it basically so that it's going to be so much more expensive and so much more burdensome for you to build the home that you want with a gas stove or a fireplace. You can't build fireplaces anymore because they won't meet the HERS ratings that you're required to get your certificate of occupancy. You simply can't do these things. You have to have sealed systems, and it's punishing people for wanting something instead of incentivizing people for doing something. And that energy policy itself is causing us, the working class, middle class people, to pay for really expensive products because they are not really on the market yet. The idea behind all this is to make it law to purchase these things so that more companies will want to produce them. And with more companies wanting to produce them, you have the competition and the natural reducing of pricing for the companies that do it well. And they can do that research and development and make their products better, and that's the free market. And what is happening here in Massachusetts, and California and Massachusetts are very similar in this aspect. By making it law, these companies know they can start to produce these products because we have to buy them. And unfortunately, that comes on the backs of working class people, young people who want to buy a home. Unfortunately, it is very difficult. Amplified by some other issues like interest rates and supply chain issues and all these things that make everything else a little bit worse. It makes the whole situation worse. But it starts with some of the policies that we've put in place.
I asked this of any candidate running against an incumbent. Mm-hmm. Do you think Adam Scanlon has done a poor job for North Attleboro?
Yes.
And the reason why?
Well, specifically the question is what has he done for North Attleboro? If you look at his voting record, he has voted almost entirely. Almost every single roll call vote that he's taken has been with party leadership. And this is a big state. There's a lot of different areas, and North Attleboro I think is unique, and Mansfield and Attleboro, like our community, is unique. There's other places like it, but we're not like Boston, and we're not like Western Mass. We are unique here, and for us to be unique, it doesn't make much sense if the person who's supposed to be looking out for us is aligned with every single decision that's been made with party leadership, and that just doesn't say anything about what North Attleboro or our community needs.
You were running as a Republican in one of the bluest states in the nation. You're too young to remember the 1972 election. Nixon won 49 states, all except Massachusetts, and then when Nixon eventually left office, there were bumper stickers that said, basically Massachusetts was right, or something like that. But blue state, the good news is you're running in one of the red pockets of a blue state.
Right.
How much do you think that will help you?
Massachusetts is, I'm told from other people from the outside, we are told that Massachusetts is a blue state. And there are some things that might indicate that, with all our congressional seats being all blue and, with our senators being blue.
We like Republican governors, though.
Yes. There's a lot more conservative people, Republicans, in Massachusetts than all the blue elected officials would indicate. And as you mentioned, this area does lean very conservative, very Republican. And that gives me a lot of hope. When I am out, which I try to be out as much as I can, meeting people, interacting with people, especially at the block party, there's a ton of people that are Republican or conservative or lean in that direction. And there's a lot of, as you know very well, I'm sure, there's a very small registered Republican base. There's a much higher Democratic registered base, and we're mostly independents, unenrolled voters. But there's so many unenrolled voters that I do talk to that just say, I don't want to join the party, but this is how I lean and this is what I think. And there's so many people. It just gives me so much hope and encouragement that there's a whole lot more people that are conservative in our area than Massachusetts being one of the bluest states in the country would indicate.
Would a first-term representative in the minority party be able to deliver the state aid that Adam Scanlon, as a third-term member of the majority party, would you be able to deliver the same type of money? Because I've even spoken to Republicans who said, I've got to give it to Adam. A lot of state aid has come into North Attleboro.
Yeah, well, and there's no question, he has been able to do things for the town, but
would North Attleboro be punished for having a Republican representative?
Not. And we don't have to look very far to see how much Betty Poirier did for the town and the communities. She was amazing, and she was in there for decades, and her husband Kevin was in there for decades. So while it's been held by a Democrat for a couple terms, before that it's been Republican forever, and forever it's been Republican, and it's done very well. And I don't see any reason why I won't be able to accomplish a lot of great things. Now, I can't predict the future and how I'll be treated, but one of the things that I do pride myself on is the ability to make relationships and foster good communication between anybody that I meet. I meet people from all different areas and different viewpoints and different perspectives on things, and I think one of my strengths being that I can understand the different perspectives that people have. Not everybody's going to think the same way, but it's being able to work with somebody and still be able to communicate and have good relationships with people, even if we may think differently, because we all have problems, and there's ways to solve these problems that don't just follow, party lines, and that's what I think I am very good at. And when it comes to being able to work with others, especially in the State House, I absolutely believe I'll be able to do that well.
I was at the block party on the 18th, my wife, my dog, and myself, and I was handed one of these cards by you, and tired of paying more for less. Vote Cannata, lower taxes for working families, prioritize Massachusetts residents and veterans. First of all, as a minority member, how do you reduce taxes? Because you're going to have to get it through the House and Senate.
Right.
And then second of all, I would assume the second portion of that, prioritizing mass residents and veterans, has something to do with migrants?
Yes, certainly. They go hand in hand. Reducing taxes is something that we can do if we limit government spending. And if the government doesn't spend our money, then it doesn't need to take our money. And I think we can all agree that we spend our money better than the government does. And so to be able to keep more money in our pockets is my goal. And to do that, it's limit government overreach in programs and areas that it shouldn't be in and things that it shouldn't be doing, and to reforming some of the policies that are already there to be more effective at the spending that is taking place, because there's lots of government programs that are necessary, helping people that need help, and part of that is the crisis that we're seeing here with everybody that's coming here. Massachusetts is one of the most desirable states to come to because we have that unique right to shelter law, and what that does is it provides people places to stay, the emergency housing and shelter, and it's a great program. It's just not quite being run, in my mind, the way it should be run. In its original design, it's not being run that way. And so if we can stop the spending through that program and other programs where we're spending more than we should for things that perhaps shouldn't be spent, now we can give that back to the working class people so that we don't have to take their money. That's how I plan to do that.
I'm not even sure the term. I follow your campaign's Facebook page.
Yes.
And I saw that you were at the Republican National Convention.
I was.
And I remember the debate between Adam Scanlon sitting right there, because I was right there, Adam Scanlon sitting right there, John Simmons sitting right here. And many people thought Adam Scanlon went over the top in votes because he asked John Simmons if he supports Donald Trump. And John Simmons, I talked to afterwards, said, you know what, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell the truth. If it cost me the election, it cost me the election. Expect the same question from Adam Scanlon, so I'm going to ask you, are you a Donald Trump loyalist?
Well, you phrased the question in a very interesting way. I, being part of the Massachusetts State Committee and a Republican here in Massachusetts, I do support our Republican candidate, and that is Donald Trump. And so, yes, I am going to support him, in his bid for the presidency.
Are you more of a Charlie Baker Republican or a Donald Trump Republican?
I'm not quite sure the difference there.
Well, certainly their speeches are a hell of a lot different.
Yes, they certainly are, and I don't mean to say I don't know the difference between who they are and what they do and how they governed. I say I don't know the difference in a sense that they have very different, ways of governing. Baker, being here in Massachusetts, had a very difficult job. He, as you mentioned earlier, it's all blue for all intents and purposes.
And Democrats had the votes to override vetoes.
Anything. So there's only so much that Governor Baker could do, and I do think he did the best job he could do in the position that he was in. And it comes back to the question you gave me earlier. Well, what can I do going in to the supermajority that the Democrats have as a Republican? There's not a lot that I will have influence over in that manner. Just like Governor Baker did not have a lot to be able to do what he felt was right. He, like I said, I do believe he did the best he could do in the circumstance that he was given. As a state committee member for our Senate district here, part of my job is to help grow our communities and the Republican committees in our communities to be able to bring good candidates to the table so that they can put themselves out there and build more of a balanced state house, and that's really my goal, is to balance the state house so that we can have a say, so that we can have that back and forth. And one of the ways that I had started thinking about this earlier, a friend of mine that kind of gave me the idea, is that if you think about where you want to go, if you've got a destination in mind and it's right there in front of you, is taking a left turn or a right turn the best way to get there? Or is the best way to get there to go straight? Is to go directly at your destination? And what we see right now, especially in Massachusetts, is we're basically only taking left turns. And it makes it very difficult to go straight if we only take left turns. And one of the things that I want to be able to bring to the table with that balance is the ability to not just take a left turn, but to aim more towards the solution that's in front of us. And I'm not trying to say that we need to take right turns. I'm trying to say that we need to collaborate together to make it to the destination as the best way possible.
David, thank you for joining me. I'm looking forward to our one-on-one interview, and I'm looking forward to our debate here in the North TV studio. David Cannata, the Republican candidate for state representative, all of North Attleboro, 1 precinct in Attleboro, and I believe 3 precincts in Mansfield. But you're only concerned with North Attleboro, so he's the Republican representative candidate.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, sir. Have a great one, everyone.